Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Spanglish Sports World on the Spanglish World Network and Single TV, channels 249 and 250. Well, as you can see from the screen, we have one of our great hosts of shows here on the Spanglish Networks, Mr. Scott Churchson, who brings us the sports den and tales from the film set. Just want to remind everybody that Single TV can be, so please go down to the iOS and Android stores to download the Single TV application. It's totally free. No reason why not to download it and enjoy it. There you will find all our programming in both Spanglish Sports World, Spanglish World Network, and the Hair Network, where you can find diverse programming from all areas of entertainment. As well, reminding you that Single TV can also be found across Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Well, and here he is, none other than Mr. Scott Churchson. Hey, Scott.
How we doing? Now, with that intro referring to me as, the great and all these shows, it is putting a little bit of pressure on me right now to be able to live up to that expectation, but I'll see what I can do.
Well, I have to pump up my people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do.
So here we are. Another unbelievable week of sports have gone by. Baseball has been a surprise. A lot of fans in the stands across the board, but the races are just phenomenal. You can't say that this has been a baseball season that you want to forget.
Not as
let's
yet.
Look at the American League East, for example. Tampa Bay has a 10-game winning streak. When have you heard of a 10-game winning streak in baseball? For the longest time, it hasn't happened.
It's funny because a lot of people gave them a hard time when they traded away Blake Snell. They just recently traded Willie Adames. But the one thing I've always found, and we had talked about this on our show as well, is that you don't ever count out Tampa and Kevin Cash. They have always found a way to succeed despite the circumstances. A few years back when they traded Evan Longoria out west to San Francisco, that team got ripped. And where has San Francisco been and where has Tampa Bay been? Any move they make, assume it's the smart one at this point. And you know what? They are currently tied for the AL East lead with Boston. Granted, it's a very close race between four teams there, but despite their payroll and frankly, a very poor market, that team is competitive constantly because they're phenomenal on the road.
Well, and they proved it once again today against the local team here in Toronto, the Toronto Blue Jays, who happen to be, now they don't need them Blue Jays until they find settle somewhere.
The Earth Blue Jays for the moment.
Yeah. And Tampa Bay wins 14-8 in 11 innings. It's simply ridiculous. Another team that has been making waves, and it's a team close to you. The New York Yankees are making waves. Yeah. They climbed from the basement now to third spot with a hold of that third spot because the Blue Jays have lost 6 out of 7. So what looked to be a race between Boston, Toronto now has become a race between Boston, Tampa Bay, and the Yankees sneaking in again.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. They had a terrible start here in New York. The New York area is much more unforgiving to poor performances than pretty much anywhere else in the country, especially when it comes to baseball. Jordan Yamamoto, who is struggling with the Mets a little bit, fans trolled the hell out of his wife recently. His wife had to actually go on and defend herself because her husband didn't do well. That's how New York operates around here. So when the team was struggling in April, they were getting crushed. We talked about it on here as well. And then at some point, the switch was flipped. They played 13 straight games. They're currently 8-2 in the last 10. They had a 3-game winning streak against the best team in the AL with Chicago. And they're showing that, yes, they have the skills. They just needed to get things put in place a little bit. But surprisingly, that is a team that's succeeding, not because of the hitting so much as the pitching is.
Well, an update just so that we speak a little bit more about these wonderful guys.
Mhm.
The Tampa Bay Rays are now at top of the American League East
Yep.
after winning their 11th consecutive game. They follow only across the major leagues to the San Diego Padres, who have a better average at 6.38, while the Tampa Bay Rays have a 6.12 average.
Yeah, I mean, right. Good.
So
Yeah.
it's amazing, man. Like, I mean, this cannot get any better.
But again, Tampa is doing it with a low payroll. And that's the amazing thing. Like I said, they have this, cohesion of players, and run by Kevin Cash. They're competitive in arguably the most competitive division in baseball. And they have the best record in the, in the AL. They're tied for the second best record as far as basically wins, percentage points goes in baseball across the board. And they're doing it with such a low budget. And frankly, I'll say it for what it is, a very disappointing market, that you can never count that team out. I'm not surprised at all. I'm really not.
So here comes the next battle, and that's in Chicago.
Yes.
And not from the National League, but we are looking at the Chicago White Sox, who are currently sitting in first place, 2.5 games in front of their nemesis, the Cleveland Indians. And they have lost 3 straight, but are still ahead of them. And it's amazing to see that, because the White Sox were one of those teams that people said, well, yes, they do have a good lineup, but the pitching is not as strong as it should be. And I feel that watching the Chicago White Sox play this season is inspiring, and I think they might just surprise some of the teams in the American League East and American League West when it comes down to the playoffs time.
Here's the amazing thing about this. The White Sox for the last 2 years, not counting last year was the shortened season, but if you go back prior to that, the last time that they had a winning season, playoffs, a winning season was 2012. They had losing seasons ever since then until last year. Tony La Russa arguably could be the most hated, successful manager in baseball right now, because everybody is tearing him apart, talking about how it's a failure. This team, like I said, even despite the fact that they lost 3 straight to the Yankees, they are still a game and a half in front of Cleveland right now for first place in the AL Central. Like I said, Tony La Russa took a lot of heat recently because of his decision to basically chastise one of his players for swinging 3-0 when they put a position player in opposite him, a few days back. He won Mercedes. So it's a bizarre situation out there. Like I said, the team is winning, but the articles are tearing him apart for, frankly, doing what they brought him in to do. I don't get it.
Well, we need another Billy Martin in the picture.
And he's the old school guy, yeah. He's definitely the old school guy that way.
So now,
I mean, my take. Let me just say, I'm gonna basically stick my neck out on this one. I am one of the few people that actually agrees with Tony La Russa in all of this. If the manager says you do not swing, you do not swing. I have been a proponent of not crushing the opponent and basically putting them down, even though you have the chance to. If you've already gotten the win, you secure that. Anything beyond that is for your own personal edification. So I am well aware of the fact that I am in the minority on this, and I am well aware that I will take the heat, because I already have taken the heat for my belief that Tony La Russa was in fact in the right for this. But I'm okay with that. Like I said, I come from an old school. I'm an old fart. I get it. But that's just kind of my take with this, that I think he got more heat than he deserved for telling one of his players not to swing when a position player was on the mound.
And let's be honest, Tony La Russa knows. I guess we can say that he knows what he's doing. Let's remember the teams that he has been with and the trajectory in wins that he has.
Mm-hmm.
the Oakland Athletics with the Bash Brothers in Conseco and Maguire. Then he kind of won a couple of championships there, and then he moved on to another mediocre team that he turned into a powerhouse in the San Luis Cardinals.
Mhm.
And he decided to bring Maguire down south with him
Mhm.
and build that team up. And he did a great job there. So he's going to Chicago now when the team was struggling
Mhm.
with having players with the potential to excel. It doesn't surprise me. And he's a hard guy, but he
Sure.
builds championship teams, and everybody knows that. Whatever Tony La Russa has touched has turned to gold.
Mhm.
So don't be so hard to criticize him now. Wait till you get to the playoffs and you see your team battling to get into the World Series, because
Mhm.
that's what will happen with the Chicago White Sox this year. With the likes of Abreu, there is nothing stopping them right now.
You know, this is a team that has not actually won a playoff series actually since 2009. 2008 they lost the ALDS on 3 games to 1, and then lost the AL wild card last year. So they actually really haven't advanced in the playoffs at all since that World Series win. And then even prior to that, they've had pretty much nothing the entire run. So honestly, like I said, I'm surprised by the backlash. I really am. You
So
know.
let's look at the American League West, and it's really a doozy battle, because we are talking about the Oakland Athletics in
Mm-hmm.
first spot, 1.5 games in front of the not so hot Houston Astros, and we know the battle that is going in between those teams.
Mm-hmm.
Oakland said from the get go, wait till the Astros reach our home turf and see what will happen. You know, and I think that the A's are that team, the same way as the Tampa Bay Rays are a team. They build teams based on their farm system,
Mm-hmm.
based on inexperience, and they make them gold. And I mean, they are a farm of great stars that they polish, and then they go somewhere else.
But what's interesting about Houston is, and this happened last year too, they are unified in the fact that they realize that they are the villain of Major League Baseball. You know, Dusty Baker, a guy who I have admired and respected for literally decades, somebody that has deserved more, more wins than he's ever gotten, has been at the helm of, frankly, a very good team. You know, people hate Houston, and they have a right to. Again, this is the New York area. We know what happened here in 2017. But here's two very interesting stats about Houston, which everybody's going to throw it back at them and say, what are they cheating? I don't know. But number one, they have the best batting average in baseball at 270. They're 7 points ahead of the Boston Red Sox at 263. Secondly, and this is the really, really big one, they have the lowest strikeout percentage in Major League Baseball. They're at 17.9% of where they strike out 17.9% of the time. That is so low that the next lowest team, San Diego Padres, is 3 points higher. So they're the only team that's below 20% in strikeouts, and they are well below it. This is a team that is unified in their desire to succeed in spite of everything that happened in 2017, and they're okay playing the villain. I said this in the beginning of the season. This is a team that can and will probably make the playoffs. Everybody will hate them for it. Everybody will loathe basically their accomplishment on that. But if you look at the AL West, not only are they the only team in the AL West that has scored more runs than they've given up, they've scored 59 more runs than they've actually given up. That number, believe it or not, is second best in the AL behind Chicago.
So now we move to, and I prefer to start with the West and move to the East,
Please.
because I think it's going to be an interesting twist here. So up to about a week ago, the Giants were at the helm of the National League West. And everyone said, man, are those Giants bound for glory again?
Mm-mm.
And, well, they have come down. They are now 2 games behind the San Diego Padres. But more importantly, their two star pitchers are now out for 5 games, and that's going to hurt.
It's going to be interesting to see how they could rebound. I mean, they have been a very, very pleasant surprise this year. They've struggled mightily the last few years. I don't think anybody really expected them to be able to contend with San Diego and LA. I think everybody in baseball figured it was going to be neck and neck between those two teams. And you know what? So far they are. But it's nice to see San Francisco competing again. Again, like you said, they've had some struggles on there, but the team has maintained resiliency. And I think given the way that the National League is right now, I think they have a really, really good shot of getting that second wild card spot because just frankly, every other team just is kind of garbage. I mean, the Cardinals notwithstanding, if you look at the records of all the other teams in the National League, none of them are really that good. So I think it's very possible they could, if they can weather this storm right now with being short on pitchers and everything like that, I think they've got a really good shot to get back into the postseason. I believe for the first time since 2016. Wouldn't surprise me.
Well, now here comes the battle of the ages: world champions or Tatis. Because basically, because if you saw the landslide of home runs that Tatis dished out this weekend, it was beyond real, and they are still to land.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to say though on that. Good pitching will beat good hitting, and you have to admit the Dodgers have just loaded everybody up on there. They had $103 million lined up in amongst 3 different pitchers. You have David Price starting in the bullpen. There's so much strength in that team and everything that they've got that you really, when it comes playoff time, that's going to be what's going to be the difference maker. Tatis, yes, but pitchers first.
Now, isn't it ironic that the first ball that Mr. Albert Pujols sees in a Dodger uniform is a home run?
Yeah, but how weird is that for him? To spend all those years in one part of LA and then bounce to the other side. He knows the team well, even though he played for the other team in that city. He knows the players over there. He knows the setup. Obviously, they'd have interleague games and everything. But for Pujols, I'm very happy. I did not think he was going to end up with a National League team. That was my take on that. But for him, it's probably the best position he could be in. It's going to give him an absolutely unquestionable good chance to win a World Series again. It's been a lot. It's been a fair number of years. I think he's due, but he's in the best position I think possible. And I think in this particular case, he's at the end of his career. He's okay, maybe taking a little bit of a reduced role as necessary, and he doesn't have to move. He can stay put. We're in the same city, and that's just a brilliant situation for him. So he is a consummate family man, and I think this worked out really well, all things considered, in every aspect. And you know what? If the Yankees don't make it to the World Series, I would love to see the Dodgers getting to win it again for him specifically.
And one of the interesting things with Pujols is that he is just 8 home runs away from the 500 mark, which would not to say that his career hasn't been good, but that solidifies his ticket to the Hall of Fame straight left, right, and center. And he's 127 hits from 3,000. Can you imagine if he would manage to get between this season and the next season 3,500?
Oh yeah,
that's
tough to do though. In a season and a half like that, he would need probably 2.5 seasons to probably get it at this point of his career. Still possible, but I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to take, especially with a reduced role.
It's unreal. No, I love it for him because I have seen I know this guy very well. He's a good friend,
Mhm.
but he's just a amazing player.
Mhm.
He has never, and I was surprised that it wasn't the St. Louis Cardinals that picked him up because it would have been great for him to end his career as Cardinal,
Mhm.
considering that his whole career was the majority of his career was in St. Louis.
Mhm. Now, the magic question here, I have a feeling I already know what my answer is to this. I'm not sure what you think. When the time comes for him to go into the Hall of Fame, does he wear a hat or does he go in without one?
Oh no, he will wear a hat.
Which team?
St. Louis.
You think it's St. Louis?
Yeah.
I'm going to say he's not going to go in with one at all. Because he spent a lot of he spent a lot of years and put a lot of numbers up with
the same with
Anaheim.
Winfield. It happened the same to Winfield.
But the only difference is Winfield did play for a bunch of different teams there. I
He
think
played
four
for
that
three.
what's that? Four that I can remember.
No, three.
San Diego, San Diego, Cleveland, Yankees, and I thought Minnesota for a while.
No, he played. He played for San Diego. He played for the Yankees. He played for the Jays.
He had five teams.
He played for the Jays, and he played for Minnesota.
Yeah, he played Yankees, San Diego, Minnesota, the Angels. He played for
Oh,
two
the
seasons.
Angels. He played one season. Yeah.
The Cleveland and Toronto. Okay, yes. So in this case, like I said, there's a few more in there, and because I remember he played for Minnesota and Cleveland at the end of his career.
Yeah.
Because again, he was referred to over here in New York as Mr. May, because unlike Mr. October, Reggie Jackson, he'd basically plow all his blow up his stats in the middle of May, and then basically by September, October, when the team was in desperate need, that's usually when he would taper off, probably out of fatigue. So Steinbrenner, in his biggest, most volatile period of his life, would refer to him as Mr. May. So, that's another thing entirely. But no, my take personally is I think Pujols goes in without a hat. I don't think he's going to have a team loyalty on that one.
So now let's jump, and we've been talking about the two teams. One of the teams in the Central, in the St. Louis Cardinals, but they are being chased by two teams.
Mm-hmm.
One which I consider more danger than the other. Second spot right now are the Cubs, and in third spot are the Brewers. I would fear more the Brewers than I would fear the Cubbies.
I would be inclined to agree with you. Yeah. The funny thing is Chicago is great at home, but weak on the road. Milwaukee's at a little more balance there. They do have a losing record at home, but they are pretty well balanced as far as home and road goes. What's that?
My fear with Milwaukee Brewers is when Yelich gets on a streak.
Yeah.
And if Yelich gets on a streak, that team wins no matter what.
Yeah. They just traded for Willie Adames. I think he's got a good chance to kind of rebound a little bit and a new start over there. Also, again, a small market area going from Tampa to Milwaukee. Yeah, I would say they would not surprise me if they made a run as well. I don't think they're going to take the division. I think that's still St. Louis's division to lose. But they could at least make it interesting as far as the wild card goes. I still stand by San Francisco and probably San Diego as being the two teams for the wild card, but I think Milwaukee could at least make it interesting.
So with that, we enter the twilight zone. And that is called the National League East.
The National League East, let's call it what it is.
And I don't understand how a team that is 21-19, when everybody else has 30 games played, is leading the National League. And that is the good old Metropolitans.
It's their pitching. Listen, you can't. DeGrom is carrying that team. Stroman is having a good year. You got a lot of guys in there that are actually doing really, really well as far as, the team itself goes. They've got a great starting pitching staff right now. The team ERA, that's pretty low, actually. Oh, there it is. Team ERA is 3.3 across the board on this. That's a really strong number right there. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. But again, their problem, they just can't hit.
My situation is that they still have games to make up this season. They have a lot of games to make up this season.
Yes, they do.
Uh,
But that could actually be a benefit, I think, because their starting pitching staff is so strong. They're going to have to do a lot of double headers. Double headers being 7 inning games, which means they don't have to rely on the bullpen quite as much. Their bullpen this year is much better than it is years prior. But if you throw DeGrom out there, you throw Stroman out there, you throw any of these guys out there like that, these guys can go 5 or 6 innings, which means a lot more in the event of a double header than a full 9 inning game.
I I am like, I mean, I see the Mets like, if you look at Atlanta, compare lineups, Atlanta and the Mets,
Mm-hmm.
they are kind of even there. The
It's
only
still.
advantage that I see in Atlanta is their outfield. Their
Mm-hmm.
outfield is solid. They don't have to worry about the guys that are there playing there. But aside from that, I think they are very even. And the pitching definitely goes to the Mets. I mean,
It does.
and,
I mean,
and
I
I
think
feel sorry for the Gram, because the Gram doesn't win. Is not winning because they give him support. I mean, I feel sorry for the
Oh
man.
yeah,
He could have had probably about 6 more wins than he has right now already.
oh yeah, yeah. They've struggled to try and score runs for him. There was a game a few days ago or a few weeks ago where he pitched it up like a complete game, 2 hitter, 1 hitter, whatever it was, and they scored 6 runs on him, and for him rather. And it was an amazing thing because they score 1 run, they score 2 runs, they just cannot basically score for the guy, and as a result, it's a massive struggle. He won the Cy Young with a losing record. What does that say about your ability to actually hit for the man? But imagine if they actually were able to get this turned around. David Wright's able to start swinging again. Lindor is starting to come around a little bit, and I think the weight of the contract initially was being a little difficult for him. The Mets can turn this around, but the good news for them is the fact that they're playing in a division that, frankly, is not going to say garbage, but it's pretty bad. You're the second place team right now. You have Atlanta and Philadelphia tied for second place with a losing record, and Miami's just behind them.
So I'm just going to do a quick recap of the games that are to come today, because
Mm-hmm.
there is some interesting stories there. Uh, the first game today at 6:40. The first of two games today. Uh, Phillies and Marlins.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have at 7:10 the Indians and Tigers. There is no battle there. I think the Indians should take that one by far. The
Mm-hmm.
Tigers have proven that even with
Oh,
improvements they cannot win.
they're bad on both sides of the ball, especially the pitching side.
Then we have the Mets and the Rockies
Mm-hmm.
at Shea, so that should be an easy going for the
Mm-hmm.
Mets. Twins and Twins and Orioles. The Orioles can,
A game nobody's going to care about.
yeah, basically. Uh, Now here comes an interesting battle: the Padres and the Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a dandy, because is Snell against Woodruff. And
Woodruff is my early pick for Cy Young too.
yeah, you know,
He's got the lowest ERA. I think he's got the lowest WHIP. I think his WHIP is .74.
and let's remember that these two guys 3 years ago were teammates.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Woodruff left because he said that Snell was taking
Mm-hmm.
his aura from him. Then we have the Cardinals and White Sox. That should be interesting. And the last game is the Battle of the West.
Mm-hmm.
Mariners and Athletics. Kayuki against Montas.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I had the pleasure of watching a matchup between Kayuki and Montas in the minor leagues. And it was the first time I have seen in baseball history a fight between two pitchers, because because one hit the other. And it was funny. I've never seen that. Monta started running one way, Kayuki started following him and chasing him around the freaking field.
What is a video of that? Someone's got to get a video on the internet, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, it was one of those games that you have to see the blooper. Well, now that we finished with baseball, and well, actually, no, we haven't finished with baseball. The story of the day just was published an hour ago here in Toronto, particularly because it's a story about Toronto. The woman that had accused Alomar of sexual influence has withdrawn the case. She's not going to pursue legal action. She's not going to pursue anything. But yet, his name has been damaged left, right, and center.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Scott, I am not a macho man. I consider myself a very fair guy. But I said, and we were the only news media that did not publish anything on the topic, because I told all of you guys that I wanted to hear both sides of the story before I came out with something. I am happy that we maintained our integrity, because when this comes out, as this is coming out right now, we did what we had to do as journalists. I think that what the response from Major League Baseball after they spoke so badly about a guy that was doing a fantastic job as an ambassador of the game, I don't know how they are going to withdraw their comments.
That's unfortunately how the world works now, where accusations are enough to convict, and if you're wrong, you throw an apology out there and you move on to the next accusation. This is such a fast twitch world now, where the comments themselves, the accusation is enough to get the ratings, and it's all about the ratings. It's all about what kind of money you can draw from it. And unfortunately, that's a major issue, because you have situations like this where she was withdrawn, but unfortunately, his reputation still has a black eye from this no matter what. In my particular case, I am a domestic abuse survivor. My first wife told me that if I told another human being about it, she would lie to the cops and say I tried to rape her. I lost the court case. I had police reports. I had pictures of everything that happened, and I had her a 5-figure settlement, because unfortunately, that's how this society works. And it sucks. Believe me, I get that. But for Robbie Alomar, as time goes on, this could be one of those things that it could work in his favor a little bit, because there could be a modicum of guilt. Look what happened with Johnny Depp, the whole Amber Heard situation. He was crushed by that. And then all the things came out, her testimony where she admitted that she did all this stuff. And then suddenly a lot of people went on a little bit of an apology tour. And that could happen with Robbie Alomar as well, possibly.
Yeah, but they removed everything from baseball.
Oh, I know.
How do you turn back the cycle and say, well, we kind of rushed to the decision, and our investigation wasn't so solid as we thought it was?
What would have to happen, I think, and this is just my take, is I think Alomar would have to go after them and force their hand. Because in this industry, in this society, nobody wants to admit fault and admit guilt. But when you're pushed into a corner and you don't have a choice anymore, then at that point, then you acknowledge it. So if he wants to have recourse to be like you took this away from me on what was proven to be, not guilty grounds, and you owe me. I don't know. It depends on what he wants to come. It's time's gonna have to tell. It's all.
I mean, I feel sorry for the guy, because sincerely, not just because he's a friend, but as a human being, to be put through that situation and your name being tarnished. And And the Hall of Fame today just published a tweet saying that it was good that they reflected on their decision, because what Robbie Alomar produced on the field is why he's in the Hall of Fame, not because of what his external life has to have to do with it.
And also keep in mind that he took a little bit of a hit years ago, also with that whole spitting incident. I think it was what, John Hirschbeck, the umpire.
Yeah.
So he spit on Hirschbeck, but the two of them have become friends because he got lost in the moment, and they've bonded. So he's been able to overcome that part of it. This one, unfortunately, is worlds bigger, especially in this kind of society where you see someone like, for example, Terry Collins and what's happening with him. People are quick to convict. You know what? I'm just going to say it. People are quick to convict because it gets more likes and retweets on Twitter. If you wait and you slow it down on this, you may not get as much publicity for it. And that's what it matters most. Likes, retweets, and impressions. And that's why people do the things they do.
Well,
it's a bandwagon thing. Listen, people went on a bandwagon and crushed me 5 years ago after I did America's Got Talent. 6 years ago, actually. People bandwagoned on me and talked about how much I sucked and should kill myself. And it was funny because that's how the internet works. And that's how the internet works here. But I think, will find a way to persevere from it.
So now we are going to go to the next next stage, and that's the MLS.
Yes.
Because the MLS has been playing and no one has been noticing for some odd reason. And
it's getting there. It's getting there.
And you know what? The games haven't been that bad. I have seen some of the games on TV. They haven't been that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have the pleasure that because you are in the wonderful land of Oz in the US, that we were able to get you accredited with the New York CDFC.
Yes.
And you have been able to attend games and seeing how that process goes. Can you please explain to us, because here in Toronto, I don't have a team to go to check because we don't have teams in Toronto lately.
You will. It'll come back. It's a COVID thing, and it's, they got that problem with Vancouver out there too, I think. But like I said, it is really kind of fortunate here. Most of the games are usually played at Yankee Stadium, which, for any soccer fan already knows, Yankee Stadium is not really the best place to have soccer because you're converting a baseball diamond into a soccer field, and that's been an issue. I watch the comments on Reddit. I see the comments on YouTube all the time, complaining about how the fields in Europe, the fields even at Red Bull Arena at Harrison, are so much better than Yankee Stadium is. But the experience makes up for it. We've been dealing a lot with COVID crowds. Last weekend, they were playing in Harrison, New Jersey, because the Yankees were playing at home. So their home location, so to speak, was actually Red Bull Arena. But the energy and the vibrancy makes up for it. They only had maybe 3,000 people in the stands. It was a pretty quiet crowd, but the band was there. The energy, the people that are there are devoted and they're excited and they're impassioned. And that's a big deal. One of the biggest things that I found is, even though NYCFC took a brutal loss over the weekend, they were up 1-0, 82nd minute, gave up a tying goal, and then 5 minutes into the added time, gave up the winning goal. And it was a tough as hell loss. They were still taking selfies with the kids anyway, grabbing phones, doing one of these with it. And they were still there to interact with the fans. And that was a nice thing because you don't really always see that necessarily in other sports like football and baseball. When we had the XFL last year, you absolutely saw that with the XFL. They were taking pictures. Hell, in the XFL, they were drinking with the fans. They were actually drinking beer with the fans. It was great. But that notwithstanding, there has been a very big, human interaction between player and fan with MLS. And I think that's what adds to the appeal of it. So is it where it needs to be? No. Part of that is a COVID issue, but it's growing, because of the fact that, the United States is a very United Nations kind of country. We have growing sports that we never would have had 15 years ago. Soccer being one of them. It's drawing 500,000 right now, which honestly is not that bad for where it is. It will get bigger. It will get stronger. But it's becoming more of a United States sport now, because there is so much more action and movement going on.
So let's try to define this because they have played 7 games this season so far. Some teams have 6. But let's look at the Eastern Conference. Right now, atop of the league in the Eastern Conference sits the New England Revolution, a team that last season might as well have not played because they amounted to a total of 6 wins in 14 games. And now they are at top of the league with 4 wins, 1 loss, and 2 ties. And it seems like that team has melded together and are just playing fantastic soccer. The next team closest to them is Orlando, and they have a record of 3-0 and 3 ties. They sit a couple of points behind New England, followed by Philadelphia, who are 3-2 and 2. But the two Canadian teams in the East can't seem to do anything. Montreal sits in 7th spot, 2-3-2, and they are 2-3-2 because I think the other team missed the net. There was something like a magnetic shield that protected that net in those 2 games that they won, because the ball just bounced off the net of the pedestals of the net and didn't allow the ball in. And then you had the Toronto FC, who have been for the last 3 postseasons in the playoffs, and this season it seems that no matter who they bring to join the team, they cannot just win.
Well, they got the benefit of a very lucky point last week against NYCFC. There was a goal that was negated that officiating later admitted should not have been negated. That would have given NYCFC a 2-0 lead late in the second half. The goal was negated. Toronto came back, scored the tying goal, and as a result, both teams came away with a point. So they got an extra point out of there they weren't supposed to get. So take what you can get right there.
So I want to ask your opinion. Where do you think this league is heading? Because without fans in full force, the teams are not making money. They cannot be making money.
They will. If they can ride out this COVID storm, I think they'll be okay. The country, the United States especially, but also the rest of the world, is becoming a much faster paced world. You're seeing people losing interest more quickly. We're in a TikTok world, 1-minute videos, tweet, read, move on, watch something on Netflix, quick for 5 minutes, bounce to the next thing. That's how we are. So we need to be more microscopically entertained by the second than we ever did before. The funny thing about it is, and this is something that I'm going to be writing on. I think I talked to you about this last night. I don't have the numbers from last night yet, but ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, the national broadcast, has averaged about 1.5 million viewers per game. Okay, fine. They're drawing about 1.55 million every single week since the start of the new season. The 90 Day Fiancé, a show on the Learning Channel about people that meet 90 days later get married. That show is drawing 1 million more people in the same time slot as ESPN is, because it's more fast pitched. It's more dramatic. There is a show also on TLC at the 10 o'clock time slot. I know because I've actually seen it, called Sister Wives. This is a show about polygamists. A guy who literally marries 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 different women. How legally, I don't know. That show is beating ESPN Sunday Night Baseball in the ratings. because nobody cares about a slower moving thing. They need fast pitch stuff. They need it faster than they ever did. Soccer can give them that kind of entertainment because it is a non-stop, non-ending thing. There's no minute and a half between pitches. That ball is kicked, it just keeps moving. The clock continues to go, and that I think is what people are looking at. I do personally see soccer overtaking baseball probably in the next 5 years in the ratings. Baseball, if you look at the World Series versus the NBA Finals, the NBA Finals, for example, has beaten Major League Baseball in the TV ratings in their respective championships 3 out of the last 4 years. Last year, 2020, they didn't. COVID may have had something to do with that. I don't know. But 2017, 18, and 19, the NBA Finals beat the World Series in TV ratings. Soccer, I think, can go in that same direction because there's no downtime in it. It just keeps moving. I think that's going to help it.
So that's amazing because now I understand why teams like the Seattle Sounders in a no end zone have a lot of following. Seattle sits at top of the league like always in the West with a 5-0 record. Don't know how they do it, how they manage to pull players to play for them because it's a dead market. Seattle is one of those dead markets that surprises me. We know that how the Seattle Mariners do it, or the Seahawks used to do it with the Japanese public, because the Japanese public seems to get involved into those type of games. But when it comes to soccer in Seattle, when they play at the beginning of April and March, where the climate is just downpour, cold and nasty, I don't know how they get fans into those stadiums.
Seattle's one of those weird places where I think the fan base makes up for it in enthusiasm. Like I mentioned before with NYCFC, you had a marching band, you had the fans chanting. That is typical life for a Seattle fan. They got the Kraken coming, they got the new hockey team coming over there. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think Seattle is one of those just impassioned places where they just have energy, and I think it's going to carry over. The Sounders are a very strong team. They've got what's the name? Raul Ruiz from Peru. He's leading. He's actually second right now in goals with 6. You take it a little bit further down. You got Brad Smith with 3. You have a team there where you have players that you can get behind and get enthusiastic about. So over there, it wouldn't surprise me. There isn't a lot of competition either, which I think helps. They got some stuff in Vancouver, fine. But what do they have? There's no basketball up there. You have the Canucks, fine. You got the Portland Trailblazers in that area. But for the most part, Seattle is pretty much the hub of sports in the Northwest. And I think that gives them a lot of extra energy and a lot of extra vibrancy because you have, obviously, Washington State, but you also have, like, Montana, even parts of, like, North Dakota. You have parts of Canada. You got parts of Oregon, Colorado. There's a lot of territory there that you can draw a fan base from, unlike a place like here or even Toronto, where you have a lot of teams in one little tiny space.
Yeah. So I'll just mention one because I heard this rumor the other day in Clubhouse. And by the way, guys, Clubhouse is a great platform, social platform where you can meet a lot of the players that we are talking about today. And it was a baseball talk with regards to the expansion. And one of the things that has been talked about is, as we know, the Tampa Bay Rays are, for some odd reason, always talked about in that they cannot keep a team, that they don't have how to support the team and everything.
I love that stadium, too. It's a nice stadium.
So the rumor is that the viability of Montreal is no longer there, of them returning to Montreal and becoming the Expos again. But now they are talking about Vancouver to add another idea to the National League. It would be a National League team in Vancouver, which would make sense for the idea that Vancouver would suit the Canadian West with a team, a professional team that could be supported.
Seattle's going to fight that one hard, I think. Like I said, it's very disappointing because I've been to the Trop. It's a really nice arena. The fans there that they do get are impassioned, but you get a lot of transplants. You get people that move to Florida, senior citizens from all over the country that carry their team loyalty with them. You know, Montreal, Vancouver. There's been some talk, I think, of the Oakland A's possibly moving. I've heard a couple of rumors about Portland possibly being a city as well, that they might end up getting a team, or possibly Tennessee as well. I think a lot of those cities are very possible for something like that because they are a little bit baseball starved. Me personally, being an old-fashioned type, I would love to see Montreal get it again. I miss having Montreal having a team. I really do.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Well, we have to move quickly because we have a little bit amount of time left, but I do want to touch the two surprised games series in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, the Atlanta Hawks. Who would have ever thought the word Atlanta and winning a playoff game would sound again? But they are leading game. They won game one of this round, 107-105 against the New York Knicks.
Also a team people were like, wow, the Knicks are in the playoffs. Yeah. You know, I think this is a series that's going to go 7. I think, ironically, this could be a series that people remember for a long time because you get a couple of teams that, it's been tough for both of those teams for a little while. And that first game was very back and forth. You know, I mean, there was never, you got, like I said, you got a couple of teams there that I think have potential for growth. So it's going to be nice to see what happens here, but it's a welcome sight for both of those starved fans.
So, and the other game, which shocked the hell out of me last night, the Memphis Grizzlies took on probably one of the best teams in the NBA, in the Utah Jazz, and managed to defeat them by 3. They made a 30-point comeback in the last quarter. That's amazing for a team that no one expected to be even in the playoffs.
I mean, a lot of it was the fact that, I mean, they won the turnover battle 14-9 overall. They had a ton of steals. I mean, the steals themselves was 12-3 in favor of Memphis there. You know, fouls basically were on par, but points in the paint were big. You know, there was a lot that they did that I think surprised some people. Do I think they're going to win? No, I don't. But it was nice to at least see that a little, at least for game 1.
So, Scott, I want to thank you.
Thank you.
It was great to have you. I'm going to have you more often because
please, thank you.
I think that you bring great source of information to us. And I just want to remind everybody that this show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network and its affiliates on social media. Remember to go to our website, SpanglishSportsWorld.com, for all the news. You can see their stories by our great writers and columnists and hosts. And remember, Spanglish Sports World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, but especially live it. Because Spanglish Sports World is sport, and sport is Spanglish Sports World. In the name of Mr. Scott Cherson, my name is Eduardo Harari. This has been Spanglish Sports World English edition. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time and in these same channels, Single TV channels 249 and 250, to bring you the best of sport as a whole. Until tomorrow, please remain home. Please remain safe during these pandemic times of COVID-19.